Asterisk, I never believed in fate until the night I threw a punch for a stranger. That stranger became my
You look
wife.
beautiful tonight.
This is our
You always
story,
say that. Cheers
asterisk.
to us.
To us.
Hey everyone, if you're enjoying this story of how an accidental fight led to the love of my life, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories that prove truth is stranger than fiction. I was late for a blind date I didn't want to go on. My sister had set it up, insisting that Sarah was perfect for me and that I needed to stop hiding in my apartment. The truth was, after my last relationship imploded spectacularly, I wasn't ready. But family persistence is a force of nature, so there I was, rushing through downtown on a Friday night, already 15 minutes behind. I rounded the corner toward the restaurant when I saw her. Not my date. I had no idea what Sarah looked like, but a woman backing away from a man whose body language screamed trouble. Her hands were up defensively, her face a mixture of fear and anger. "Just leave me alone," she said, her voice steady despite her obvious discomfort. The man moved closer. "Come on, don't be like that. I'm just trying to be friendly." I should have kept walking. I was already late. This wasn't my problem. But something about the trapped look in her eyes stopped me cold. "Hey," I called out, stepping closer. "Everything okay here?" The man turned, annoyed at the interruption. "Mind your own business, man." The woman looked at me, relief flooding her features. "I'm fine, he's just..." "She's fine," the man cut her off, putting his hand on her arm. What happened next was pure instinct. One moment I was standing there, the next my fist connected with the side of his jaw. He stumbled backward, more surprised than hurt. "What the hell?" He touched his face, eyes wide with shock. I hadn't thrown a punch since high school. My hand throbbed. I was as surprised as he was. "Just walk away," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. For a tense moment, I thought he might swing back. Instead, he spat on the sidewalk and backed up. "Crazy asshole," he muttered, then turned and disappeared into the Friday night crowd. The woman stared at me, wide-eyed. "Thank you," she said finally. "But you didn't have to do that." "I know," I said, flexing my sore hand. "Are you okay?" She nodded. "I'm fine." He was just being persistent. I probably could have handled it. "Probably," I agreed. "Sorry for jumping in like that." She smiled then, a genuine smile that transformed her face. "I'm not complaining. I'm Sarah, by the way." My heart stopped. "Sarah? As in, blind date Sarah?" Her smile faltered. "Wait, are you Michael? Anna's brother?" I nodded, suddenly aware of how this must look. "I'm supposed to be meeting you at Costello's right now. And instead you're punching strangers on the street." She laughed, the sound bright against the city noise. "This is not how I imagined tonight going." "Me neither," I admitted. "I'm usually much more boring." "Well, I'd say you've officially shattered that impression." She glanced at my hand. "We should probably get some ice for that." I winced, both from the pain and embarrassment. "So, Costello's?" She shook her head. "That place is overrated. I know a better spot around the corner. They make a mean old-fashioned, and I think you've earned one." That's how my blind date began, with a fight and an unplanned change of venue. As we walked, I apologized for being late, explaining about my hesitation and my sister's persistence. "I get it," Sarah said. "My friend has been trying to set this up for months. I kept saying no." "Why did you finally say yes?" I asked. She considered this as we reached the small, dimly lit bar. "Honestly? She showed me your picture and said you were kind. I figured kind was worth an evening of my time. And then I punched a guy within 10 seconds of meeting you," I said, grimacing. In my defense, she countered as we slid into a booth. That was kind of a unique circumstance. The bar was intimate, all dark wood and amber lighting. Sarah ordered our drinks while I nursed my swelling knuckles with ice from the water glasses. "So," I said, when our drinks arrived. "Tell me something about you that my sister wouldn't know." Sarah took a sip, thinking. "I collect vintage typewriters. I have 11 so far." "Typewriters? Like, the old clacking machines?" "Yes," she said, her face lighting up. "There's something about the physicality of them, the weight of the keys, the sound they make, the way the words appear immediately on paper. It's tactile in a way that computers aren't." "Do you write on them?" "Letters, mostly. I have a pen pal in every continent except Antarctica. We only communicate by handwritten letters." I leaned forward, genuinely interested. "That's amazing. Why letters?" "Because they're real," she said simply. "When someone takes the time to sit down, think about what they want to say, physically write it out, address an envelope, find a stamp, and mail it, that means something. It's not like firing off a text or an email. There's intention behind it." I nodded, understanding. My grandfather kept every letter my grandmother ever wrote him. After she died, he would read one each night before bed. Sarah's eyes softened. "That's beautiful. What do you write about with your pen pals?" "Everything. Nothing. Life." She smiled. "My pen pal in Japan sends me haikus about her garden. My friend in Brazil describes the rainforest. My Australian correspondent is tracking a family of kangaroos that live near his property." "And what do you tell them about your life?" She thought for a moment. "The small things, mostly. How the morning light looks through my kitchen window. The book I'm reading. The old man who feeds pigeons in the park near my apartment." She paused. "I'll probably tell them about tonight. About how your blind date assaulted a stranger." She laughed. "About how someone unexpected stepped in when I needed help." Our eyes met, and something shifted between us. The conversation flowed after that, meandering from books to travel to family stories. Sarah was a high school English teacher who dreamed of writing a novel someday. She had a sister who lived in France, parents who still held hands after 40 years of marriage, and a cat named Hemingway who was missing an ear. "Your turn," she said, after sharing a story about her most challenging student. "Tell me something real." I took a breath. "I build furniture. Not professionally, I work in software development, but it's what I love. There's something about taking raw wood and turning it into something functional and beautiful. My apartment is full of pieces I've made." "That's amazing," she said. "What's your favorite piece?" "A rocking chair I made for my mom's birthday last year. It took me months to get the curves right." "I'd love to see it sometime," she said, then blushed slightly. "Your work, I mean." "I'd like that," I replied, surprised to find that I meant it. The night continued, hours slipping by unnoticed. We ordered food, then another round of drinks. There was an ease between us that I hadn't expected, a natural rhythm to our conversation that made it feel like we'd known each other much longer than a few hours. As the bar began to empty, Sarah checked her watch and sighed. "I should probably head home. I have papers to grade tomorrow." "I'll walk you," I offered, leaving money on the table. Outside, the night had turned cool. Without thinking, I gave her my jacket when I noticed her shiver. We walked slowly, neither of us seeming in a hurry to end the night. "This wasn't what I expected," Sarah admitted as we approached her building. "Me neither," I said. "I thought it would be awkward and forced. And instead, you played knight in shining armor." I laughed. "Hardly. I think I just got lucky." She stopped at the steps of her brownstone, turning to face me. "I don't normally do this, but, would you like to come up for coffee?" I hesitated, not because I didn't want to, but because I wanted to do this right. I would, I said honestly. But I think I'd rather save that for our second date. If you're interested in there being one. Her smile was worth the restraint. I'd like that very much. Tomorrow? I asked, surprising myself with my eagerness. Tomorrow, she agreed. I leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull back if she wanted. Instead, she met me halfway. The kiss was gentle, a perfect ending to an unexpected evening. As I walked home that night, my hand throbbing and my heart full, I couldn't help but smile at the absurdity of it all. I had gone to a blind date I didn't want, punched a stranger, and somehow ended up meeting someone who made me feel more alive than I had in years. That first night set the tone for our relationship, unexpected, passionate, and real. Our second date was at my apartment, where I cooked dinner and showed her the furniture I'd built. She ran her hands over the smooth surfaces, appreciating the craftsmanship in a way that made me see my own work differently. On our third date, she took me to her apartment, where I met the one-eared Hemingway and saw her collection of typewriters. She let me type a letter to one of her pen pals, laughing as I hunted and pecked at the unfamiliar keys. "You're terrible at this," she said, but her voice was fond. "I prefer to create with my hands in other ways," I replied, pulling her close. We fell into each other's lives with surprising ease. I learned that Sarah sang in the shower but was too shy to do karaoke. She discovered my obsession with old Noir films and my inability to cook rice without burning it. We shared our fears, her anxiety about never finishing her novel, my worry that I was wasting my talent in a job I didn't love. 3 months in, I was helping her grade papers one night when she looked up suddenly. "Move in with me," she said. I blinked, surprised by the abruptness. "What?" "Move in with me," she repeated. "You're here most nights anyway. Hemingway likes you better than me. And I." She hesitated, then continued softly, "I sleep better when you're here." I put down the essay I was reading. "Are you sure?" "It's only been 3 months." "I'm sure." Her voice was steady, her eyes clear. "I know what I want, Michael." 2 weeks later, I moved my clothes and essential furniture into her apartment. The rest went into storage, except for the pieces I'd built myself, which found new homes throughout our shared space. My dining table in her kitchen. My bookshelf in her living room. My bed frame supporting our mattress. Life settled into a new rhythm. Mornings were a dance of coffee cups and quick kisses before work. Evenings were cooking together, grading papers, or me sketching new furniture designs while she typed away at her novel on one of her vintage typewriters. But it wasn't all smooth. Sarah's job was demanding, and she often brought the stress home with her. I worked long hours on software projects I didn't care about. We had our first real fight 6 months in, over something trivial that escalated because we were both exhausted and stressed. "You never tell me when things bother you," she accused, after I'd been quiet and withdrawn all evening. "You just shut down. Because you bulldoze over everything," I shot back. "You always think you know what's best." We went to bed angry, something we'd promised never to do. I lay awake, listening to her breathe, wondering if we'd moved too fast, if the magic of our first night had blinded us to the realities of building a life together. In the morning, I woke to find her side of the bed empty. Panic fluttered in my chest until I saw the note on her pillow, typed on her favorite Smith Corona. "I'm sorry. You're right, I can be overwhelming. I push because I'm afraid of losing what matters, but I end up pushing away instead. I love you. Meet me for lunch?" We met at the bar where we'd had our first date. Both of us apologized. Both of us promised to do better. And we did, mostly. We learned each other's patterns, the warning signs of stress and frustration. We created space for the hard conversations. On our 1-year anniversary, I took Sarah to a furniture workshop I'd rented for the day. Together, we built a small table, my hands guiding hers as we planed the wood, cut the joints, assembled the pieces. "This is us," I told her as we applied the finish. "Taking raw materials and making something beautiful together. Something that will last." That night, she gave me her gift, a vintage typewriter she'd restored herself, with a sheet of paper already loaded. On it, she'd typed, "For the stories we'll write together." I knew then that I wanted to marry her. Not someday, not eventually, but soon. The planning took 2 months. I wanted it to be perfect, meaningful. I enlisted her best friend, Emma, to help set the stage without giving away the surprise. On a crisp fall evening, exactly 1 year and 3 months after our first meeting, Emma convinced Sarah that they were going to a new literary event downtown. Instead, she led Sarah to the exact street corner where we'd first met, where I was waiting. I'd spent the day transforming the space. Strings of lights hung from the trees. Dozens of typewritten notes were suspended from branches, each containing a memory, a moment from our relationship. In the center stood a small table, the one we'd built together, with a vintage typewriter on top. Sarah stopped when she saw me, confused at first, then understanding dawning on her face as she took in the scene. "What is this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I took her hand and led her to the typewriter. In it was a sheet of paper with a single line. Asterisk, she needed a hero. "I just brought myself, asterisk." "This is where it all began," I said, my heart pounding. "Where I took a chance and somehow found everything I never knew I was looking for." I guided her through the hanging notes, watching as she read snippets of our story, the time we got caught in the rain walking home from a movie, the weekend we drove to the coast and fell asleep on the beach, the night she read me the first chapter of her novel, her voice trembling with vulnerability. At the end of the path was a small wooden box I'd crafted from the same wood as our table. "Open it," I said softly. Inside was a ring, not flashy or extravagant, but thoughtfully designed. A simple band with a pattern I'd carved myself, reminiscent of the grain in our table. I took her hands. "Sarah, from the moment I met you, everything in my life has had more meaning. You turned my world from black and white to color. You challenge me, support me, and love me in ways I never thought possible." I took a deep breath. "I don't know what the future holds, but I know I want to face it with you by my side." I dropped to one knee. "Will you marry me?" She was crying now, tears streaming down her face. For a terrible moment, I feared I'd misjudged everything. Then she nodded, pulling me to my feet. "Yes," she said. "Yes, of course yes." I slipped the ring onto her finger, and she threw her arms around my neck. Around us, people had gathered, some filming on their phones, others applauding. "I can't believe you did all this," she whispered against my neck. "You deserved a story worth telling," I replied. Later that night, curled together in our bed, Sarah traced the pattern on her ring. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "most love stories don't start with a punch." I laughed. Ours was never going to be like most love stories. She propped herself up on one elbow. "Tell me honestly, did you really think I was worth all that trouble that first night? Or were you just being polite when you realized I was your blind date?" I considered the question seriously. I recognized something in you. A kind of courage. You weren't a damsel in distress, you were handling the situation. But you also weren't too proud to accept help when it was offered." I touched her cheek gently. "I didn't know you'd become the most important person in my life, but I knew you were someone worth knowing." She leaned down to kiss me. "For the record, I thought you were either insane or the bravest man I'd ever met." "And now?" "Now I know you're both," she said with a smile. "And I wouldn't have it any other way." We married 6 months later in a small ceremony. My sister Anna, who had set us up on that fateful blin,